It's game day. Get your horns up. Welcome to the On Texas Football Tailgate Show. I'm Jeff Howe. He's Jerry Hamilton. There's CJ Vogel live on location in Gainesville. It's Texas and Florida getting ready for a 2:30 kickoff between the Longhorns and the Gators. We're going to talk you through what's not a very appetizing 11 a.m. slate. We'll get you through that and get you closer to the 2:30 kickoffs. I want to thank our game day coverage sponsors. We've got Tito's, Flight by Yingling and Von Lane. Also, big thank you to Hargrove Roofing for being the lead sponsor of the Tailgate Show. CJ, go to you first. We talked about the weather all week. What is the weather like as we sit here, 3-ish hours before kickoff?
It's humid. It's muggy. It's been raining every 15 or 20 minutes, just little sprinkles. You can tell by the hat right now, not big drops. And if that's the rain that we're going to see during the game itself, I don't think it'll be that big of an impact. Excuse the hair there, but you see behind me.
The hair's a big impact.
It will be. But pretty sunny. Sun's peeking out right now. But, of course, it's Florida weather. And if producer Matthews taught me anything this week, and it's what it is right now won't be what it will be. And it's going to come in waves, basically, for the next 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, Jerry, you're a veteran of the Sunshine State. What can we expect from a weather standpoint?
Yeah, like producer Matt says, I mean, it's a come and go weather forecast, right? It may rain for 5 minutes and it's gone. Weather Channel right now, the hourly forecast before we get into the latest injury report from Friday night and our thoughts on the game are, there's the wind is supposed to pick up around 3 p.m., right? So right around game time, because the wind's going to be the main thing. It's a sustained 14, 15 mile an hour wind gusting 25, 30 miles an hour. I think that's the main thing. The rain is going to be off and on. The highest percentage of rain is coming up around 12:15 to about 1:30. And then there's a chance there's one cell that if it doesn't dissipate, there could be some rain right at the start of the game. But after that, the rain should subside. So we'll see if the field is very slick at all, if it just rains off and on here for the next couple hours. But it's the wind is the main thing, and the wind is supposed to pick up right around 2:30, 3 p.m., goes all the way through 5 p.m. So all the way through the game, they're expecting, as of right now, the sustained winds to be 12, 14, 13, 14 miles an hour, up to 15 miles an hour, and the gust up into that 25 to 30 range.
All right, just want to remind everybody, Jerry and I will be a part of the Watch With Us, along with Aaron Hogan. Aaron's hosting that. That'll be during the game. And then the post-game show, Bobby Burton and Rod Babers leading our coverage of the post-game show. CJ, I'll go to you. Florida people, you hear people in the Florida market, you hear from Gators fans, they've been waiting for this game for a long time for Texas to come down to the Swamp. What are the vibes like around the stadium right now as we approach kickoff?
Yeah, they may be waiting or kind of anticipating this game for a number of different reasons, right? One, Texas kind of beat Florida pretty good last year, right? They dropped 49 on them. On the other hand, a lot of Florida fans are walking around with blue shirts that just say Fire Billy in orange letters. So
get me one of those, please. Will you get me one of those and bring it back?
I've been looking for a couple, Jerry. I'll try to bring some back. But, the point being is they're excited for this game, but for a multitude of different reasons. On top of it, of course, it is Texas, right? Texas will travel. Texas will draw each home field's best crowd. And, I mean, it's packed out here. We're in the heart of campus right now. It is – folks are excited for this game, for better or for worse, from the Florida side.
Jerry, I'll yield to you on matters when it comes to football, high school or college in the Sunshine State. You and I have been doing this for a long time, and we've seen when that part of the fan base, when they've just had enough with a sitting head coach. And we've seen Florida get there a couple of times. Jerry, is Billy Napier coaching for his job today, or do you feel like in a lot of ways maybe his fate's already sealed?
I think it's already done. I mean, because I think there's a known that this is, when the USF loss you just can't have, and then you lose 2 road games with what's in front of this team. I mean, they have to run off 7 wins in their last 8 to get to 8-4 on this schedule, and it seems extremely unlikely. So I think the fate's sealed. I think he sounds like it in his Monday press conference. I think it's already pretty much a known thing right now, and that's really the key. That's really the big thing for me is from a team perspective from Florida, I think they're going to come out and play really hard for their coach today. If Texas handles business against Florida, I just wonder what the rest of the season is going to look like for those guys. Because if you lose this game and you go to 1-4, even the players at that point are going to be like, okay, yeah, we know. So I think this is kind of the last gasp for the locker room and for this team, for their coach today. So if Texas handles business, I think this may be, the LSU game, the Miami game, the Texas game could easily be the best we see Florida play this year from a we're in it to win it standpoint. Because if they can't get Texas today, they're 1-4, and everybody on the campus knows it's over for the head coach at that point. So I expect. Look, I'm expecting a 4-quarter game. I think Florida's got talent, and I think they'll fight, and I think they're good on defense. And I think that home crowd can be a factor in the game as long as it doesn't turn to boo birds in this game. And I expect a physical football game. I mean, guys, we'll get into it. But the one thing about, the one thing people are looking at, well, how bad the offense played against LSU and Miami, and I agree 100%. You know what I look at with this game? They're battle tested. There's nothing Texas is going to do to them they haven't seen physically this year. That's the one thing about Florida today.
To your point, Jerry, when you turn the ball over 5 times in an SEC game, you should get boat raced.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-score game against LSU, so Florida can play some defense. Let's go ahead and talk about the injuries leading up to this game. We got the latest. Now, we'll get another injury report about 90 minutes before kickoff, but last night, about 10 after 7 Central Time, the SEC dropped their Friday night availability report. The big news there for Texas guys, C.J. Baxter out for this one. CJ, when you look at that injury report, what stands out to you other than the obvious of CJ Baxter not going, which we kind of knew was going to be the case?
Yeah, we'll talk about Malik Muhammad being questionable and whether or not he goes. Right now, I think obviously that's up in the air considering the status, but Emmett Mosley probable. I just want to see what he can provide, what he can give to this Texas offense. I've talked with a number of folks around the program, a number of Texas fans here at the tailgate. Folks are excited. They know that he's talented. They know that he can provide something to this offense that Texas has maybe seen in glimpses, obviously with injuries to DeAndre Moore as well. But what can that wide receiving group look like if you go Parker Livingston, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, all guys over 6'2", or if you want to get guys with great perimeter blocking on the outside with DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, and Emmett Mosley. Look, the combinations are there. And again, Texas has been hamstrung by its wide receivers a little bit this year. What can he do to help Arch in this offense get to the next level? Again, Jeff, we've kind of alluded to him as Sasquatch. Well, you catch Sasquatch, then you get to dissect him. Then you get to find out everything about him this weekend is basically that opportunity to see what he is, what he can do, and what he will be moving forward.
Jerry, what stands out to you when you look at this injury report?
Yeah, look, I think with Emmett Mosley, the thing that he can bring to this team today, not knowing what happens in the pass game today, I think he can bring physicality and run blocking on the perimeter in his snaps he's there. I think he can impact this team winning without statistics necessarily. I think that's one of his strengths as a player, as well as I think he's a physical guy who can help your run game and help your perimeter blocking game. So I think he brings something no matter how many snaps he actually plays today. The other thing, obviously, is it's what I'm going to be watching is if Manny Muhammad is not able to go, and we believe it'll be certainly limited if he goes at all, how does this change the rotation at defensive back? Where are they going to go? Are you going to see Jelani McDonald at nickel against this Florida team? Does the staff feel like that's the best fit today? Is to have McDonald's physicality at the nickel position than playing the run? But he's playing so well at safety, you almost don't want to go there in a weird way. Do you move Grayson Littleton to a corner spot today if Manny Muhammad is in fact out, limited, or can't go at all? So I think that's kind of the thing I'm looking at. From the Florida side, Joseph Mbaktu played a lot of snaps against Miami with Caleb Banks out. I just think I look at Florida's injury report and say there's no chance this is actually what it is. The D lineman Brett got hurt last week, and they helped him off the field with a knee. Maybe he's fine to go today, but it's highly unlikely he's not at least questionable or probable today. So how much are they holding back on the health of their defensive line is what I'm wondering about. That's the thing I'm wondering about with Florida.
And Jeff, for you, I wanted to toss this out. Some of these conversations about Emmett Mosley also lead to how much 12 personnel Texas will need to use. Obviously, We've seen it through the first 4 weeks. A pretty big staple, right? Texas, I think, used it north of 60% against Sam Houston State. Obviously, you should have 4 experienced guys at wide receiver now that you can deploy. What's interesting is we've talked a lot about the perimeter blocking with Emmett Mosley, DeAndre Moore back on the field. For those that watched that that LA Rams Niners game on Thursday, you see a lot of Jordan Whittington and Puka Nacua kind of motioned in to be H-back sniffers. There were some B-gap releases as well. We've seen Stark take a lot of plays from the NFL, specifically Andy Reid. I wonder if you start to see some of that as kind of a 1.5 or kind of a 11.5 personnel usage for the Longhorns with a big Mosley or DeAndre Moore in that usage.
Yeah, and when you ask Sark, hey, who does your offense most mirror? He tries to take a lot from that Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, Matt LaFleur tree, those guys, that type of offense. Yeah, I mean, look, I think they've used a lot of 12 personnel, CJ, because they've had to. I think you go back to the UTEP game when you had Emmett Mosley and DeAndre Moore out, making use of your tight ends and trying to really see, okay, what do you have? I think you know what they've gotten, Jack Andrews. Okay, how far along is Jordan Washington as a blocker? How much, Jerry, I know we talked so much about Nick Townsend leading up to the season, but how much more integrated can you get him into the offense? So I think it gave Sark a chance to really figure out, okay, what do my tight ends do? What do our personnel percentages now look like once we've got everybody back? Jerry, the thing that I keep coming back to, though, I'm with CJ. I think you're going to see more 11 personnel today than we've seen before, but I think you'll still see a healthy amount of 12 because I don't think they're going to run 2-back personnel unless CJ Baxter's a part of that picture, and he won't be today.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that you're spot on, Jeff, that Sark got a really good look at the tight ends through wide receiver injury, right? And I think that allowed Nick Townsend to become more of a factor maybe and looked at things with him. And, by the way, red zone struggles, I think, running the football have allowed Nick Townsend to become more of a focal point in this offense as a blocker. I really believe one of the things, I do think we're going to see a lot more 11, and I think the 11 guys, if Texas – because Florida's not a great pass rush team, let's say that, knock on wood. Because of that, I think you're going to see more 11 personnel, and that's actually going to open up Jack injuries today through the 11 personnel. Because I think we miss sometimes how important that is the 3 wides on the field and how they're schemed helps open up the tight end and his advantages. Mm-hmm. And when you have 12 personnel and you have 2 wide receivers, well, injuries becomes one of your focal point guys, and it's harder to work him through a defense up and down the field. I think now, if they run more 11 today, that's really going to open up Jack injuries in this game. If we see a lot of 11 today, I expect injuries to have a good game against Florida.
Now, I want to get to the quarterbacks in this game here in just a second, but before we do that, Jerry, let's thank our lead sponsor for the Tailgate Show. That's our friends over at Hargrove Roofing.
Yeah, thank you very much to our friends over at Hargrove Roofing with offices across Texas, including Austin, as well as Louisiana and Arkansas. They're also expanding, by the way. Hargrove Roofing will take care of all your roofing needs. Plus, they are extremely Longhorn friendly with partners like former defensive tackle Stevie Lee. They're the most pro-burn orange roofing company out there. That is 100% true. No one wants to turn their home over to a company they can't trust. So call Hargrove today for a free, no strings attached roof inspection. Just call 512-645-3202. Hargrove Roofing. Know who's on your roof and know who is part of that company. They are great Longhorns. And by the way, they do a great job helping out the Texas NIL with Mason Shipley for at Auburn last year. Mason Shipley this year. We got to meet him at Hole in the Wall a couple of weeks ago. Great people over at Hargrove Roofing.
Got some roofing needs at my house, so I think I'm about ready to give Hargrove a call here pretty soon. Also, I want to thank the sponsors for our game day coverage here at On Texas Football. That is Flight by Yingling, Vongling, and Tito's Handmade Vodka. It's America's favorite vodka for a reason, known for great vodka, giving back and doing good for dogs. Distilled and bottled by Fifth Generation Incorporated, Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly. CJ, you and I have talked a lot about the quarterback numbers in this game, specifically a couple of just head-scratching numbers for DJ Lagway. Jerry, I want to get your thoughts on this too. DJ Lagway has been, CJ, you can get into it, the worst deep ball throwing quarterback in the country this year. And I'm floored at how bad he's been from a clean pocket. You figure at some point he's going to get it turned around. As I've said all week, you just hope it's not today. But CJ, when you look beyond the numbers, what have you noticed, any disturbing trends or unsavory trends with DJ Lagway? Or is it just that, man, this Florida offense just hasn't clicked at all?
Yeah, worst deep ball thrower in the country so far, but it's more, I think, Billy Napier just not calling deep plays, right? You know, Texas has had chances this year where, or specific plays where it's, hey, Arch, I don't care about the read, just throw it deep. I want to see what this wide receiver can give me. I want to see what you can give me on certain plays. For Florida, that's been completely absent. 1 of 7 on passes beyond 20 yards this year. That is out of 135 pass attempts. It's a pretty thin volume share on deep passes. Again, that's only 5.7%. Again, that's the worst out of 148 quarterbacks this year. It's the smallest percentage, at least. But Jeff, I know we've talked about the athlete that DJ Lagway is as well. He, of course, burst on the scene a year ago with his deep ball and some running attempts. He runs the football this year, whether it's scrambles and whether it's just designed runs, a pretty similar number of times this year percentage-wise than what was last year. You just don't see the big plays. And I think a lot of that reason is the sack numbers, I think, are correlating towards small rushes. And what I mean by that is he's barely getting back to the line of scrimmage. He's getting 1 or 2 yards. It's not him creating with his legs. It's him basically trying to survive with his legs.
He's running for his life. He's running for his life instead of running for production. I mean, that like if you watch the Miami game, that guy was under duress running. He was not running for first downs. He was running to survive in that game. And that's the magic. Texas needs to make him run to survive, not run for yards today.
Jerry, I want to get to these numbers real quick from Pro Football Focus. DJ Lagway from a clean pocket this year, completing 70% of his passes, but 5 of his 6 interceptions have come from a clean pocket. Jerry, are you seeing something? Because you've watched a lot of this kid from high school up through college. Is it health? Is it something mechanical? Or is it just a case of, hey, teams have film on him now and are game planning him accordingly?
I think it's a little bit of everything, but I'll say this: against LSU, they did a great job disguising coverages. And I think after a couple of those interceptions, he became really unsure what his eyes were telling him. And that led to a couple more. So I think LSU actually did a really good job. And LSU's really good on defense. They did a really good job of disguising. And then as that confidence starts to wane, I mean, then the indecision comes more and you're not trusting what you're seeing. Then you start to feel pressure and the ball's getting out of your hand. Or if you feel like pressure's it's not there, your clock's going off, then you get to rush to get the ball out of your hand at times. I just think it's kind of compounded on him. But look, I mean, his strength always was throwing the ball down the field in high school. I mean, he was a really good, by the way, Georgia punter literally fair caught the ball in the 2 against Kentucky, although they're just running up and down the field on him already. But I think it's just compounding. I just think it's the mental part of the game for these young quarterbacks. And I mean, we saw Arch go through his difficulties in a different way. But I think after the confusion set in for Lagway, then I think, you know, the doubt, the self-doubt, and the doubt with what you're seeing really crept in against a defense that was doing a good job disguising things. But I'll say this for Lagway as well, that his strength has always been throwing the ball down the field. And that was the way it was in high school with him. Obviously, had Jermaine Bishop. He had some guys. It was pretty easy to throw the ball down the field. But that's kind of the player he is. And so now that the deep ball's not there, and I don't think he's a healthy guy, by the way. I mean, I have a couple of buddies that cover Florida, and the word is that he should have had surgery coming out of high school, but did not, and may have not for NIL purposes, right, to miss time. And that he has not been healthy. And that's obvious because when a young quarterback's on a pitch count in the spring and even in the fall camp, that's like so uncommon with a young quarterback. You want him to get as many reps as you can. So the fact that they've been that worried about him tells you that he has not been fully healthy since early in his career, if at all, at Florida.
And CJ, that seems like a catch-22 for Florida because you want to push the ball down the field. You get Dallas Wilson back this week. Is DJ Lagway healthy enough to do that? And against the Texas defense that's really good against the run, held 5 straight opponents to under 100 yards rushing. That includes Ohio State twice. If you can't get the run established and you become one-dimensional, I don't think you have a chance to move the ball down the field against this defense. Not a great situation, CJ. Florida's entering this game offensively.
No, and that run game that we've talked about all week, Jeff, it's good, but it's good because of the running backs, right? It's good because of Jaden Ball. 73% of their running yards from running backs this year, their rushing yards, come after contact. That is the third worst in all of the SEC. The only two teams with worse rushing numbers are Oklahoma, who we've talked about, they can't run the ball at all, and South Carolina, a team, again, who cannot run the football this year. Florida right there with them. So Jaden Ball, top 10 in the country in only 4 games when it comes to missed forced tackles, creating forced tackles, running the football. He can do it. He is a hefty guy, and that's a guy that I worry about. Should Florida be able to stay in this game? Should they keep this game close? Should they take a lead in the second half? They will ride him because 230 pounds deep into a second half will start to feel like 250 regardless of who Texas has in that front seven.
And by the way, the quarterbacks, DJ Lagway's had all the talk this weekend for a good reason, right? He's had 5 interceptions against LSU. He was running for his life against Miami. He has 9 touchdowns and 12 interceptions in his career against P4 teams. We've been through all of it. But absolutely the key is Texas has to take Jaden Ball out of this game today. He had 12 carries for 46 yards against Miami. If he has a similar number, 12 for 45, 13 for 50 against Texas today, that's should be really good news for Texas unless there's coverage busts. If we look up in the fourth quarter and he's got 18 carries for 82, 84, 85 yards, then Florida's having a lot more success offensively today.
Jerry, hold that thought. I want to go right back to that here in just a second. But before we do that, let's talk about IP Vanish, another one of our fine sponsors here on Texas Football. Nothing kills game day like a blackout or a blocked live stream. IP Vanish VPN keeps your connection private so you can bypass restrictions and watch securely, even on public Wi-Fi. And there's more. With IP Vanish Advanced, you also get a secure browser that blocks trackers, malware, and viruses, plus 1 terabyte of cloud storage to back up your files. That means your streaming stays private, your browsing is protected, and your files are always safe. Right now, On Texas Football listeners can save 83%, just a little over $2 a month for all-in-one protection. Go to ipvanish.com/On Texas Football. That's ipvanish.com/On Texas Football, or follow the link in the description of this episode. And again, thanks to IP Vanish for sponsoring the On Texas Football Tailgate Show. Jerry, I want to go right back to you because you mentioned Texas taking Jaden Ball to the game. If you're Pete Kwiatkowski, do you kind of do what you do and play your base nickel and maybe even try to stop the run with a lighter box, or do you just say no, we're going to go 40 personnel, put big bodies up front, and try to make DJ Lagway just beat you throwing the football?
I think you got to take Ball out, whatever that means. You got to take Jaden Ball out and stop the run. And I think you'll start with a lighter box and see if you can win with a lighter box initially, right? And then make your adjustment from there. But the one thing that absolutely cannot happen in this game is Jaden Ball rushes for 100 yards on you, unless it's late and the game's out of hand, but he won't be in at that point anyways. If he gets 100 yards, it's probably going to be really meaningful yards in this game. So I think that what Miami did, and the interesting thing is, what did PK and Nansen see on tape that Miami did successfully against Florida? And how's that different from the Texas scheme? And what are they going to implement this week? Not change the scheme. I'm not saying that, but what are a couple of things, the wrinkles they may implement to make sure Jaden Ball doesn't get go? Because the key with Jaden Ball for me is, and by the way, the number 2 running back's out today, so it's going to be a lot of Jaden. Yeah. And the number 3 running back's already been out, Trayvon Webb. So here's the key: is if he gets to 20, 21, 22 carries in this game, that means Florida's been in more third and mediums and third and shorts. And the most amazing stat, and it was the guy that covers Florida, I think it was, for the Gainesville Sun, CJ. I don't know if you heard this. Florida's 1 for 27 on 3rd and 7 or more.
Oh.
1 out of 27 on 3rd and 7 or more. So that's why it's so important to win first downs and take Jaden Ball out of this game as much as possible, because Florida is, these are 2 of the worst third down offenses in the country. Now, Florida's done it against a tough schedule, but that's why it's so important to take Jaden Ball, and not out, but very much what Miami did. Limit his touches, because if his touches are limited, that means Florida's in 3rd and longs, and that's where you want him to be.
CJ, I want to go to you on the Texas offense. We've talked, you and I were there on Monday for Arch's availability, and I don't blame QB1 for not wanting to spend too much time with the media, but he looked like he'd rather be anywhere else except talking to us. And again, I don't blame him, but he seems like a guy who's really chomping at the bit to get back on the field. It really did seem like the Sam Houston game was a weight lifted off of his shoulders. Not to say that he's just going to go on a tear, that this offense has everything figured out, but CJ, the further removed we get from that game, really does seem like, for lack of a better term, a really good slump buster for Arch.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And Arch is a golfer, so I'll put this in golfing terms.
Yes.
It's like you play 18 holes, right? You have a bad day, you're probably 20 over par, but you get to 17 and 18 and something clicks, and all of a sudden maybe you have a birdie putt, maybe you tap in for par to end your round, and you're sitting there like, hey, man, I had a miserable day. I've thrown 10 clubs, but something just clicked at the end. I want to go play again. I think that was Arch against Sam Houston State, and obviously that bye week probably only built onto that, the eagerness to get back onto the field. But, yeah, the folks, and we heard it from Arch, we heard it from Ryan Wingo, we heard from Parker Livingston on Monday, Jeff. These guys feel like what happens in practice is who they are. And what we saw against Sam Houston is that translation from practice. Now, that's the only game that we've seen where that full translation has occurred. But they know that things click well in practice. They know that things click well behind the scenes. Now they're just ready to go prove that on a national stage. Now that SEC play is here, there's no better opportunity or stage for them to go out there and perform well than here in the Swamp. This could shut up a lot of folks nationally as well.
Jerry, do you feel like Sark's been holding back a little bit, or is that preference by him, or just, hey, hadn't had the right personnel? Give me your take on a 30,000-foot view on the Texas offense conference play.
No, I think he's been holding back. I think he's been holding back because he can. Look, I think they've probably been working on a lot of things in practice they haven't done in games yet. How much of that will be today could be predicated on, wind and anything that these guys, the reason we talk about this stuff is we know how detail-oriented these coaches are. But it's not like we're just talking about it. It's like, we know how these guys are and how the preparation goes. But I definitely think he's been holding back. Look, how much of that will be brought out today versus next week is, I think, the question. But I do believe that Sark has held back stuff, and I think we all agree on this because he could in games 2, 3, and 4. He wasn't forced to, and it's not like there's going to be any wheel reinvention here. That's not what we're saying. But the pre-snap motions, some of the personnel packages, that I think we're going to see some different things here in the next 2 weeks, and I think more so probably against Oklahoma if I was guessing on it. But he's definitely held some stuff back because we've heard too much, guys. CJ, I know you've heard the same thing. As we've heard there's some things being worked on in practice that definitely haven't been brought out in the games.
Yeah. And look, to your point, Jerry, I mean, why would you show any of that, right?
No, you don't need to.
Florida and Oklahoma specifically, I think you see Sark get really deep into his bag because, look, I hate to say it, but Texas, these games are basically must win at this point.
Yes.
You cannot have a second loss before playing Oklahoma, Georgia, and Texas A&M, and you would definitely prefer not to have a second loss before you play Georgia or Texas A&M at the end of the year. So you got to get deep in your bag. I think Sark will remain aggressive, Jeff. I think, for better or for worse, I think Texas right now leads the SEC with many of those teams having 5 games played, Texas only having 4 in fourth down attempts. So that's going to maintain, and that's going to be another personality trait for this Texas team. We'll just see what kind of tricks they bring out of the bag to convert on those plays.
Question for the chat and question for you guys. If I said there's a couple of things that Texas absolutely has to do well today to win this game, what are they?
Jerry, I'm going to marinate on that. And while I do that, let everybody know one more time. Let's thank our good friends over at Hargrove Roofing for sponsoring the Tailgate Show.
Yeah, thank you very much to our friends at Hargrove Roofing with offices across Texas, including Austin. They're also expanding, by the way, as well as Louisiana and Arkansas. Hargrove Roofing will take care of all your roofing needs. Plus, they are Longhorn friendly with partners like former Texas defensive tackle Stevie Lee. They're the most pro-burnt orange roofing company out there, bar none. No one wants to turn their home over to a company they can't trust. So call Hargrove today for a free, no strings attached roof inspection. Just call 512-645-3645 888-858-3202. Hargrove Roofing, know who's on your roof.
I've got two big concerns, Jerry. The two things that are top of mind for me. One is, can Texas get some consistency going running the football? This isn't a game where Texas can win this game without rushing for 200 yards. Can they be balanced enough to just take some of the burden off of Arch? Again, Arch is going to be a pretty big piece of the run game, but can you run it somewhat consistently? And can you take advantage of good field position? You maximize your scoring opportunities. In other words, if the defense gives you a turnover inside the plus 40, can you get points off of that? Whether it's a field goal or whatever, you just want to be able to get points. So I don't know where you're at, CJ, but those are the two things for me: just some level of consistency running the football and maximize your scoring opportunities.
Yeah, look, Brandon Hewitt, I think that's a big one as well. Look, yes. Being on the road, my big thing is this. I've kind of changed tune. I think you have to start quickly if you're Texas. The weather, especially right now, is going to allow you that opportunity to do so. I said earlier in the week, it probably isn't that important considering that the Florida offense hasn't proven that they can take away a game and it'll allow you to stay in it. But if you come out and you play sluggishly, I'm just keeping tabs on this Iowa State game in Cincinnati. Iowa State punted on their first drive, failed on the fourth down attempt right after that. They're down 10-0. Cincinnati's on the 10-yard line. They could very quickly go down 17-0 on the road at Cincinnati before the first quarter's even over, and that is a mountain to climb in conference play on the road. In the swamp especially, you cannot allow Florida to build that confidence, to play with momentum, to get this crowd and keep it involved, and to allow DJ Lagway to start growing that confidence, which right now is very, very small. Texas has to start quickly and be aggressive, but smart in that sense.
Yeah, look, my big thing is for Texas to be up in the first quarter and the Texas defense play well. Because and you could say, oh, every game's like that. But I do believe in this game because of where this fan base is. They're looking for a reason to boo. So can you take this fan base from Texas and Arch hate at the beginning of the game to booing Billy Napier by late in the first quarter? Can you shift this crowd? Yeah. Can you shift this crowd? That is a big part of this game. And obviously you want to start successfully, like CJ said, offensively for Texas. But I think there's something else in this game because of this fan base and where they're at. They're talking by the middle of the first quarter, if Texas just comes out strong in this game, by the middle of this first quarter, the groans and boos from this crowd, they will shift from, Texas and Arch Manning to get that guy the hell out of Gainesville again. Do you have a chance to change the way this crowd reacts in this game? I think that's a big part of this game early.
No doubt. And to that point, Jerry, I do wonder, you mentioned earlier that Florida's going to probably fight for their head coach as their last gasp, but if you get in there and you force a 3 and out, you get up 10-0, 14 threes, 10, something like that. I'm not saying Florida's going to give up, but they may start to give in a little bit.
Yeah, because if the fan base starts to turn and it gets really ugly in there and it's like, here we go. The thing is about a defense that's had to keep an offense in the game the last few weeks, if Texas gets out early in this game, the Florida defense, here we go again, man. Like the here we go again thing is when you start getting beat.
That's where I was going to go, Jerry.
Eventually the dam breaks. A defense can't hold on forever to keep the team in a game if the offense is struggling. So that's why this first quarter – and by the way, this first quarter is huge for both of these quarterbacks because the flip side is if Arch gets off to a rough start and Florida gets a touchdown early, then those doubts with Arch can start to come back. Those confidence issues, if he misses some throws early, you punt, Florida goes down and scores. I mean, these quarterbacks are both – man, the confidence could wane quickly. And I think Arch is ahead of Lagway there. But it doesn't take much. If 2 or 3 missed throws, an interception early, Florida scores off of it, and you don't want UTEP Arch coming back. So I think the first quarter is huge for these quarterbacks.
Yeah, and we'll wrap it up here in just a second. Before we do that, though, again, want to thank our sponsors here for the Tailgate Show. Of course, our lead sponsor is Hargrove Roofing. Big thanks to IP Vanish and sponsoring our coverage here at On Texas Football today. Our game day coverage is the Tailgate Show. We've got the Watch with us coming up at kickoff, hosted by Aaron Hogan. Jerry will be a part of that. So will I. Rod Babers will join. Also, Coach Bob Shipley. And then the post-game show Bobby and Rod anchoring that coverage. And again, want to thank our sponsors for our game day coverage. That's Flight by Yuengling, Von Lane, and Tito's Handmade Vodka. It's America's favorite vodka for a reason, known for great vodka, giving back and doing good for dogs, distilled and bottled by Fifth Generation Incorporated, Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly. CJ, I'll give you first dibs on final thoughts as we wrap this up, get closer to kickoff. Anything top of mind for you as you get ready to head into the stadium?
Yeah, well, first, thank God for the SEC. Thank God for Texas joining this conference. I mean, Florida's been unbelievable. This campus is beautiful. I didn't really take a lot of road trips in the Big 12, but I can't imagine Ames, Iowa is going to be as fun as this. So I'm enjoying life right now. How many beers, Joshy Manning? Look, we're on the clock right now.
Yeah.
But we'll see. The big tailgate is actually right behind me. I don't know how to tilt my camera, but it's over there.
There you go.
On top of that, the one thing I do want to see, I want to see Emmett Moses, of course. I want to see how Arch clicks with this offense, what tricks Texas has in its sleeve, like you were mentioning, Jerry, with Sark in his bag. Get this offense back to where it needs to be, clicking-wise, and then you'll start to see Texas rise above some of these rankings that have Texas outside of the top 10 in the SEC, which I think are completely ridiculous. So that's what I want to see.
Jerry, what say you? Final thoughts?
Punting, kicking game. Look, it's you can't predict the rain. You do know the wind could be a factor today. I think punt, kick game, punt return game, decisions to be made in the return game, I think is a big part of this. I'm expecting a 4-quarter game. I hope I'm 100% wrong, but I'm expecting it because I just think Florida's got talent and they're good on defense. And I think Mason Shipley is going to play a key role in this game for the Longhorns today, as well as Boom Easter. And let's see if Boom Easter only punts today.
Yep. CJ, you and I talked a lot about some of the stuff Sark was saying about recalibrating expectations and kind of, managing, navigating your way through this conference. Kind of wrapping up what you guys were talking about earlier, a loss to Florida, to a 1-3 Florida team, is not the kind of loss the committee will forgive when the time comes. If Texas is in a position to get back to the playoff, that's one thing. And Jerry, to your point, you can call it a rock fight, whatever you want to call it. However, you have to win these games.
Yes.
Go win the game. You don't want to be heading into the Oklahoma game off of a loss. We can talk about confidence later next week, but you definitely don't. You want to get this first SEC win under your belt and go into Oklahoma with only one loss.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality is, here's our captains for the day. Arch Manning, Trey Wisner, Michael Taff, Anthony Hill Jr. The reality for me is, and look, there's no absolutes, but if Texas doesn't win this game today, this is not going to be their last loss of the season. I mean, there's no way with what's in front of you. So then you're going to be in 9-3 hopium mode, more than likely. This is a must-win game for Texas. I'm putting it out there. This is a must-win game for Texas, considering what's left on the schedule. If you lose to this team, unless they just play lights out, which they haven't done all year, maybe they have the game of their season. But if it's anything like we've seen this season, this would be a tough loss for Texas. This is a must-win game. Because after the Ohio State loss, you're down to 1-game margin for error. If you're 3-2 after today, I would say the odds are very, very, very low this team actually ends up in the playoff. So this is a must-win game today. I'm not dancing around this one. That's what has to happen.
All right. Again, we'll have you covered all day here on the On Texas Football YouTube channel. We're wrapping up the tailgate show. We got the Watch With Us starting at kickoff, and then the post-game show. Again, thank you to Hargrove Roofing, IP Vanish, Tito's, Flight by Yuengling, and Von Lane for sponsoring our coverage today. CJ, be safe out there. Enjoy the game, and we'll talk to you afterward. Jerry, I'll see you here in a little bit from your domicile as we're doing the Watch With Us. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. If you're not a member, over at ontexasfootball.com, get over to the site right now. Sign up using the promo code OTFOG. That'll get you 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for $39.95. Make sure you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or on the site, you're not missing any Longhorn coverage before, during, and after every Texas game this season. For CJ, for Jerry, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and until next time, hook 'em.